Okay, applied math. Today we are going to start a new chapter. This chapter is all about owning a car, not necessarily buying a car, but a lot of the costs that are involved with it. And you'll just have to deal with those because if you're anything like me, you'll need a car to get to work or as you get a little bit older, maybe to drive your kids around. So owning cars in America is pretty important because it's how we get around. So let's say you want to buy a car. First step to owning a car is to buy one. Now, you could go to a dealership. Dealerships can be a little bit pricey though, and especially if you don't want to buy a brand new car. So you may want to look at private ads in newspapers or local magazines or the internet. Like you can check local Facebook or you can check Craigslist or something like that. So a lot of times, especially if you're talking with a newspaper or a magazine, it costs to make the ad. So there's a lot of abbreviations. And here are some of them that appear. So things like AC, automatic transmission, cruise control, these are all things that we may want to know about the car before we buy it. Like cylinder, we may not want a 4-cylinder engine. We want something more powerful like a 6-cylinder or an 8-cylinder. We may want like a leather interior. So this lets us, as we browse through the ads here, it lets us cut down, maybe circle the ones that we want or X out the ones that we don't. Some other things to look at as we are looking through these ads are words like mint, loaded, negotiable, or firm. So if you see mint or immaculate, that means basically the car is in perfect condition, or at least they say it's perfect condition. Loaded means that it's got like all the features. So whatever the high-end features were for a car that year, whatever year that car was built, if it's loaded, it's got all or most of those. Negotiable means that the buyer, or not the buyer, the seller is probably trying to get rid of the car. So they are willing to maybe go down in price with you a little bit. Don't get ridiculous with them, but they might deal with you. Firm is just the opposite. If they say $5,000 firm, it means in theory they are not taking a penny below $5,000. So these are some of the things that you'll see as you are looking at ads in the newspaper or a magazine. But let's say you're the one placing the ad, you have a car to sell. How much is it going to cost you? So the cost of an automobile ad is determined by its length. So John plans to sell his car and places a 5-line ad in an auto magazine. So these auto magazines are good, especially if you've got like a classic car, like you're trying to sell a 67 Mustang or something like that, or a 57 Chevelle. So this publication charges $31 for the first 2 lines and $6 for each extra line per week. What will John's ad cost to run for 2 weeks? So go ahead and see if you can figure this out. Get a dollar amount. How much is John going to pay for a 2-week ad? And then we'll figure it out. Okay, let's see what we can figure out here. So we need to figure out the extra lines first. So the first 2 lines are included essentially, and then there's $6 for each extra line. Well, we can figure out those extra lines by subtracting. It's a 5-line ad, 2 of them are included, so we do have 3 extra lines. Each of those extra lines costs $6, so our extra lines are costing us $18 per week. Our initial cost was $31 per week, and then our extra cost is $18 per week, so that is $49. Now, we're running it for 2 weeks, so we need to pay $49 times 2, and it's going to cost John $98 to run this ad that he wants to run for 2 weeks. Okay, so one way that we can do this in math is to look at something called a piecewise function. So in a piecewise function, we can really simplify the previous problem by using multiple function rules. Now these function rules, we pick them based on the domain of the function. In the last problem, the domain of the function was the number of lines. So it's the value that we're putting in. Are we having an ad with 2 lines or 5 lines or 10 lines? So depending on how many lines we have, that's what rule we are going to use. So then once we know what rule to use, we just substitute in our x and we get the number out. So let's look at that last function again, and we'll write this as a cost function. So we'll call it C of x. Okay, so our newspaper ad cost $31 for the first 2 lines. So when x is less than or equal to 2, our function rule is that we just pay $31. When x is greater than 2, meaning that we're using more than 2 lines, then we have to pay for these extra lines. So we can represent that as 6 times the quantity x minus 2. And that shows the subtraction that we did on the last slide. So we had 5 lines, and we had to subtract 2 to figure out the extra lines. So in our last problem, the x was 5. Since 5 is greater than 2, we use the second rule to calculate. So the second rule is 31 plus 6 times the quantity, x minus 2. We substitute in this 5, and we get 31 plus 6 times 3, which is 18. And that's 49. So a 1-week ad would cost us $49, which is what we figured out. And then we ran it for 2 weeks, and that's why it cost us $98. Okay, let's try another one of these. Jason works for the Glen Oaks News and is writing a program to compute ad costs. He needs to enter an algebraic representation. His company charges $42.50 for up to 5 lines, with each additional line costing $7. We want to be able to express the cost of the ad as a piecewise function of x, where x is the number of lines in the ad. So let's look at how to do this. So for up to 5 lines, it just costs us a flat $42.50. So we can look here and say that as long as x is less than or equal to 5, we only pay $42.50. There's no extra there. Now, where it gets tricky is when we have more than 5 lines. So for each additional line, it costs us $7. So right here, say we have a 6-line ad. We'd go 6 minus 5, which is 1 extra line. So we need to add 7. So whenever x is greater than 5, we're going to use this bottom function. And that will get us the number that we need. Okay, let's try this. So just type in the box, how much would an ad cost if it was 4 lines? Okay, a 4-line ad is less than 5 lines, so it's going to cost us $42.50. There's no extra cost. It's going to be exactly $42.50 because we use the top rule. Okay, next one. How much would a 7-line ad cost? Okay, so a 7-line ad is definitely bigger than 5. So we need to go in here and go 7 minus 5, so that's 2, and 2 times 7 is 14. So a 7-line ad will cost us $42.50 plus 14, which is $56.50. So we'll get some practice here in class writing these piecewise functions as well as calculating with them. But just think of it as rules. We have rules and we need to just line them up. Ask questions if anything I said wasn't clear, and I'll see you in class.